I'm Randy Weener. I'm Classis Leader for Great Lakes City Classis. It's important to know how the drivetrain on your car or what's under the engine is working. But for most of us, we're not so concerned about those kind of details. We want to make sure, will the car get us where we want to go? And can we afford it? We're not concerned about the struts or the alternator. And I think the same thing is true about the annual church budget. People want to know that someone has given detailed attention to all the line items in that budget. Maybe the board, the deacons, but for most congregational members, they want to know, will this budget get our congregation where we need to go? And can we afford it? They're not concerned about how much money is going into the cookies after worship on Sunday morning or what the copyright license is costing. Let me introduce a different kind of budgeting, at least presentation budgeting, and that's narrative budgeting. Rather than having the line item number and the item and the amount that's going to be applied to that item, narrative budgeting starts with about a half a dozen major themes that are covered in your budget. Might be outreach, discipleship, missions, operations, worship. Best yet, go to your vision statement and what are the main themes of your vision statement and make that the title. So you start off with just the theme. Let's take, for example, outreach is your theme. Beneath that theme then, you give a compelling vision statement that identifies a summary of what that theme is all about. So for outreach, an outreach theme might be that we feel called by God to make Jesus known in every household within 2-mile radius of where we worship, and that it's necessary for us to meet them where they live before we can expect them to come to where we are. So there's your compelling vision. Then specifics are just a list of where those dollars will show up. So here's your grand total of what outreach is going to cost you, and you identify we're going to do 5 block parties, we're going to do a back to school fair in the park. We're going to give gift certificates to anybody who moves into the neighborhood. We're going to join the Chamber of Commerce. Those are the kind of specifics of what makes up this grand total. But there's one area that also needs to be added here, and that's staff. One of the major expenses in a church's budget is its staffing, and often we isolate them all by themselves. Better if we actually apply our staffing costs to the ministry areas in which they work. So, for example, if your pastor is spending 20% of his time or her time in outreach, then take 20% of their salary and benefits and add it in. If their youth pastor is spending 30% of their time, add it in. If you have a summer intern who comes in and does mainly outreach ministries, add it in. It gives you the full picture of what you're really spending in outreach. With a half a dozen paragraphs like that, you will develop a budget that will be understandable and compelling to your people. It will be able to highlight the vision so that you're actually putting the money, the dollars behind, the resources behind what's important to you. And it avoids that awkward moment in a congregational meeting when someone raises their hand and says, you know, my cousin Vinny will mow the lawn for $100 less a year than what we have in the budget item, so I recommend that we have an amendment to the budget and reduce it by $100. You get what I mean, you've been there. Narrative budgeting, give it a try.